Good evening, and welcome to How to Reskill and Upskill Your Career. My name is Marilyn Cargill. I'm the Vice President for Financial Aid Services, Marketing, and Research at VSAC, and I'd like to welcome you to this evening's presentation. We'll be talking with two experts tonight who will walk us through how to determine what direction you should take in order to change or start a career, how to select the right training program, and finally, how to pay for it and what resources are out there to help you. One of the very best reasons to join a live webinar is so that you can ask questions. We are on two platforms tonight. We're on Zoom, and if you're joining us from Zoom, you can type your questions right into the Q&A section of the Zoom app. And if you are on the Facebook platform, just type your questions into the comments. We're going to handle questions as we go through the evening, so certainly add questions as you'd like. And at the end of the presentation, if there's any questions we haven't gotten to, we plan to leave time to be able to answer those. So let's go ahead and get started by meeting our presenters. Our first presenter tonight is Susie Wagner. Susie is a VSAC outreach counselor who works with adults in the southeastern part of Vermont. She has assisted people in reaching their educational and career goals for over 18 years. And she has worked with nonprofits and state workforce agencies with a specialization of assisting people with disabilities. Susie is also the mom of 4 teenagers and understands firsthand the challenges of balancing work, family, and education. Our second presenter is Miranda Roth. Miranda works in the VSAC Grant and Scholarship Department, where she's been helping Vermont families find the funds they need to pay for education for over 15 years. Miranda is also the mom of a college student, so she also has experience in balancing work and helping students with education and being a parent. So lots of great experience on this panel tonight. Susie and Miranda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So I also just want to take a moment to introduce Vermont Student Assistance Corporation for those of you who might not be familiar with us. VSAC is the state agency that was created about 50 years ago by the Vermont State Legislature to help families have both the informational and financial resources that they need to pursue education beyond high school. And when we talk about education, we're thinking really broadly. It could be a 2 or 4 year college degree. It can be a 2 or 4 week training program. It can result in a license or a credential or new skills, or it could end up in a bachelor's degree. Education right now is incredibly broadly defined, and Vermonters all across this state use all aspects of those various certificates and degrees and licenses to find careers and work that they are interested in doing. So let's get started. Now more than ever, Vermonters across the state are looking to increase their skills so that they can advance in jobs they currently have or gain new skills so that they can start a new job or career. COVID-19 has absolutely impacted this state, and it has hit some industries much harder than others. So we have a number of Vermonters who aren't changing their career because they want to, but because they need to. A lot of adults wrestle with 2 major issues when it comes to seeking training: how to find the very best program for the training that they need to meet their career or job goals, and how to pay for it. So VSAC has experts that can help you with both of those questions, and we have 2 of them with us tonight. Susie, you and your co-workers in VSAC's outreach program are usually one of the very first places that Vermonters interested in gaining new skills will contact. Can you provide a brief explanation of what you do and explain how you work with Vermonters when they first contact you?
Absolutely. So VSAC facilitates several different outreach programs to help Vermonters in reaching their training and career goals. I'm part of the EOC, or Educational Opportunity Center team, We specialize in assisting adults in continuing their education. And a majority of the people that we work with are both first generation post-secondary students and also meet low income guidelines. Often when I'm working with someone who's considering training, we start with some personal exploration. We feel like it's really essential to know yourself in order to find the right training program and ultimately the career that's the right fit. If someone's investing their time and often their money in education, we want to make sure it's the right long-term choice to meet that individual's needs and goals. So there are a lot of factors to consider in finding that right fit, but we often start with what we call the big three. Those three are skills, so what you will or are good at, interests, which are what you're curious about, drawn to, or what problem you're hoping to solve. And then the third is values, which is really about what's important to you. For example, it might be family balance, or earning a certain income, having independence, or having the ability to help others. For each person, it's really a unique set. When we consider these big three, we're looking for a training program and occupation that really meet in that middle zone in order to find the best fit for the student.
Great. So one of the things, Susie, that VSAC offers with our EOC counselors is that they are spread out all over the state so that we can really work closely in the communities where those outreach counselors live and raise their families. And so we're going to have a poll question that we're going to ask the audience to respond to on where they live in Vermont. And once we know the answers to that, I think at the end of the presentation, you'll talk a little bit more about how to reach a outreach counselor for help with this. So while they're looking at that poll, could you spend a little bit of time just telling us what are the possible certificate and training programs in Vermont? And can you just highlight a few of those so folks know what's available? Because there's a lot, right?
Yes, absolutely. And on the PowerPoint, if you could move to the next slide, we'll have a really nice visual of some of the opportunities that we have in Vermont. One thing that I really just like to express is that it's quite amazing how many different training opportunities there are. We really don't have time to talk about all of them. Instead, I really just like to highlight that variety. So as you can see in this slide, Vermont offers training ranging from what might be considered fun or creative to some things that are really hands-on and practical. So there are really certificates meant to support individuals with gaining base employment skills and others that are highly specialized. And I think we're really fortunate that many of these programs are available throughout Vermont. And we also see that now in this COVID-19 environment, it's really quite amazing how many have transitioned to being offered online. One of our greatest resources, I think, for training in Vermont really comes through our Vermont State College system. So similar to the last slide, we really can't list every single program that you might find at the Vermont State College system, but this slide is meant to give you an idea of some of the trainings that they have available. So for example, the Community College of Vermont, they now have 18 certificate programs, 14 of which are available fully online if somebody is interested in that type of format. So that's quite amazing. There are also really quite a few unique and specialized training programs. For example, the University of Vermont offers an artisan cheese and sensory fundamentals professional certificate, and Northern Vermont University offers certificates in accounting and small business. So the diversity and accessibility of programs in the Vermont State College system is really impressive and is growing. So I see that the poll results are up, and it looks like we have a number of people participating today who are in the central Vermont region. and also Northeast and Northwest. So we have a lot of folks Central and North. I'm from the Southeast corner, so for any of you, I would not be able to be your EOC counselor, but we have 7 counselors throughout Vermont. So we have counselors in your regions as well who could meet with you and help you sort through your options and really see what some of your best options are. So as we get towards the end of this presentation, we're going to share a little more information about who those counselors are and how you can contact them.
Great, Susie, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we also in Vermont have certificate programs. So there's a difference in the type of credential, right? There's lots of different credentials out there. So can you talk a little bit more about certificate programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So we offer different credentials and certificate programs at a variety of different locations. So on the last slide, we highlighted those Vermont State College System programs. You'll see on this slide that actually there are many locations throughout Vermont where students can access training. So here in Vermont, we have 16 regional adult and career tech ed centers that offer a wide variety of training. Many of us think of them for their high school programs, but they all do offer adult training as well, both in person and online. Though again, with COVID, we're seeing a lot of programming online right now.
Sure.
It's really quite amazing some of the others. So again, we can't list them all, but we've listed a few additional on this slide just to give people an idea of some of the great opportunities. Burlington Code Academy, Advanced Welding Institute. It's really quite incredible the number of massage therapy training programs that we have throughout the state. And we have a number of providers who also offer the commercial driver's license training. So again, the offerings really vary throughout the state, but we're quite pleased with the number of independent programs that we also connect with to help students reach their goals.
Great. So we've talked about certificate programs and we've talked about a lot of different providers. Another type of training that is out there is apprenticeships, and those sometimes seem a little more mysterious for people. Susie, can you just speak for a moment about the apprenticeship programs?
Absolutely. Yes, so Vermont has a thriving apprenticeship program. Apprenticeships are a really exciting model for training because the student has the opportunity to both learn in the classroom and also on the job with an employer who's sponsoring their training and education. So it can be a great path for students as it offers paid employment, growth in their field of interest, and support in paying for the training. Many people think of apprenticeships really in the traditional sense and are aware that this is a path for, say, some examples might be electrician or plumber, and those also are still thriving here in Vermont. But there are many more occupations that are considered apprenticeable. For example, there are now pharmacy technician and medical assistant apprenticeships in Vermont. So some statistics currently, there are nearly 700 students who are actively engaged in apprenticeships in our state, and those are in over 25 different occupations. So that can give you a good idea of the variety that's out there. The other thing when we're talking about apprenticeship that I really like to highlight is just like with many things in Vermont, there are many partners who are coming together to make this happen. The 3 primary organizations who are supporting this effort in our state are the Vermont Department of Labor, Vermont Technical College, and the Community College of Vermont.
So Susie, if somebody is interested in knowing more about an apprenticeship program, can they come to VSAC to learn more about that information, or are there other places that they can go?
So that's a great question. One thing that I really like about this state is many of us who work in this field believe that every door is the right door. So while VSAC isn't one of the main partners in apprenticeship, we work with a lot of students to help them with connecting with apprenticeships. So yes, we definitely can help any person who's interested in learning more with making the right connections. You'll also find some great information through any of these partner websites. The Vermont Department of Labor has information online, as do Vermont Tech and the Community College of Vermont. But yes, we are very excited to help students with this path.
Perfect. So thank you Susie, for outlining some of the programs that are available and how Vermonters can reach out to get help with them. And of course, we are always going to suggest there's a lot of places you can get help. I love the door that the response that every door is the right door. If you're looking for help, you can knock on any of them. But we certainly encourage you to start with VSAC if you're comfortable doing that. That's what VSAC was created for. That's why we're here. But that leads us to a really critical question, right? So it's great that there's lots of training programs and training opportunities, and there's a way to figure out maybe how your skill set aligns with a specific job, but that still leaves the whole question of how do you pay for these programs? And just to put this a little bit in context for folks, these programs have a wide range of prices. If you're looking to take a basic office suite program where you just want to learn how to use a computer, you're interested in knowing how to use Excel, or you want to improve your skills with Word or Access, that might be $100 or $200 class that you're trying to get into. Others of the program that Susie has described could cost thousands of dollars. They might even cost $10,000 or $20,000. So there's a lot of variety in price, and that puts a lot of pressure on people to be able to come up with the resources. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But before we do, we're going to slip up another poll, because what we would like to know, which will help us answer questions towards the end of the presentation, is what are the concerns that all of you have with when you're thinking about returning to training or starting a training program? What worries you? Is it the program and finding it? Is it funding? Whatever it might be, just, if you have a chance to answer this poll, it would be great. So thinking about how you pay for things, Miranda, can you take a few minutes and give us an overview of, Susie, I'm so sorry. I forgot I moved the slide here. My apologies. Can you talk a little bit about how to connect with an EOC counselor?
Absolutely. Yes. So it's quite easy, I would say. We have 7 counselors throughout the state. And so the easiest way really to reach us is by calling or emailing. So we have the central scheduling number, 877-961-4369. And if you're unsure of which counselor in the state might be the one to connect with, the person who answers the phone will help you find the right counselor and actually can help you with scheduling an appointment right away. You're also welcome to look at the map, and you'll see our email addresses right there and our names. So you're welcome, if you're more comfortable with email, to just open up your computer and send us a note, and we'll reply back, and we'll find a way to either meet with you by phone or chat by email, or we could set up a Zoom call, whatever might be the best way to connect with you to help you with whatever you need around training.
Susie, they don't even need to know who the counselor is, right? If I called and said, I live in Moncton, Vermont, whoever's talking to me is going to say, oh, you need to meet with so-and-so. Is that how that's going to work?
Exactly. Yeah, they know all of us very well. They know how to help you connect. So yeah, just call with a need, and we'll help you connect with the right person.
Great, thank you. All right. So now, Miranda, would you, if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about the funding opportunities?
Sure. So in our area, grants and scholarships, we hear most about the cost of the program and how students may pay for it. So the 3 options that we'll talk about tonight are the Vermont Advancement Grant, the Curtis COV, or Credentials of Value Training Scholarship, and the CTE, Career and Technical Education, Adult Training Scholarship. So those are the 3 main programs that we have available. One that we won't talk about tonight, but I wanted just to mention, is VSAC also has a scholarship program. And that program does have a few scholarships available for training and certificate programs. Those will be listed in our scholarships for Vermonters booklet, and our new booklet for the upcoming school year will be available in early October online. So definitely keep an eye out for that as well.
Miranda, one question that we're getting is 33% of the people that responded to the poll are saying that one of their biggest concerns about starting a training program is the technology that they need for an online program. Does VSAC have anything that could help them with a technology problem?
We do, depending on the type of program that the student is enrolled in. So definitely that's another option that students should just reach out to VSAC, either grants and scholarships or their outreach counselor, and we'll make sure we'll get a little bit of information from the students about what type of program they're enrolled in, and then try and find all of the options that would work for them.
So if they're in a what we consider a traditional training program, which is usually a non-degree program that's not connected to being eligible for some of the more traditional financial aid programs, those students could work through an outreach counselor and potentially be considered for a micro grant, which is a small grant that they can use to meet technology needs. Is that true?
Correct. Yes. So a grant that they would be nominated for based on their circumstances.
But they need to reach out to outreach in order to access those funds. So that would be another really great reason to call VSAC.
Correct.
All right, so let's start right at the top with the Vermont Advancement Grant, and tell us a little bit about this program.
Sure. Some of you may know the Advancement Grant by its former name, which was the non-degree grant. And this is a grant that's available to Vermonters who are looking to enhance job skills that will improve employability, or to students who may just be looking for an introduction to education beyond high school. So maybe take a class or two, see what college is like. Maybe there's been a long gap. I see the answers to some of the poll results, and there was another 33% of students who are going back to school after a long gap in education. This may be a good grant for that option, where you take a class to see, what school's like now. So this grant is need-based. It's based on the family's income, assets, and family size, in addition to the cost of the course or the program. So Marilyn mentioned earlier, the cost of programs, depending on what you're enrolled in, range widely. So we definitely do take that into consideration when determining a student's eligibility for the advancement grant. Students can receive up to the advancement grant for up to 2 classes per term and 2 terms per year, and with a maximum award for the year of $3,000. So that can really have help pay for the course, or some of the programs, maybe all of the program that a student might be enrolled in.
Great, thank you. And how do students apply for this?
It's a pretty quick application. Students can apply online or through a paper application. If online is quickest, because you don't have to worry about mail or anything like that, the application gets submitted and it's right to us. But for anyone that's brand new to VSAC, you do need to register for a My VSAC account. And when you come to VSAC's website, which is www.vsac.org, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner a little button that says My VSAC. Once you click that, you'll come to the screen that you're seeing on your screen now. And you'll click Register Now and follow the prompts to create an account or to create a My VSAC login. Or if you've worked with us before, you'll just log in with your username and password and then click Work with Grants. And then you'll see all of the grant applications that we have available, and you would choose the advancement grant application.
Great, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to mention the paper application pretty quick. It's just as quick. It's really 2 pages of instructions, and most of that is just telling you the eligibility, and then 2 pages of the application itself. that asks some basic demographic questions, name and address, where you will be taking your course or your program, and then a little bit of income and asset information. And then we'll follow up with you to request your tax return information.
So if someone has their tax return with them, when they fill this online application out, do you have a way that they can scan that application and upload it to VSAC so they don't even have to mail it?
We do. So as soon as the application is submitted, you as the student will be brought to your to-do list within My VSAC. And that to-do list lets you know anything that VSAC wants to tell you. So one of the requests that will be on that list is a request for your tax return. And you're able to click submit on your to-do list, and it'll bring up we call it our uploader program, which allows you to upload your tax return directly to VSAC. That helps also speed up the process.
So Miranda, one of the things that I find is that a lot of adults returning to school or returning to our training program aren't in a position where they made that decision 6 months ago and they started filling out paperwork. They may have made that decision a week or two before the program was going to start. If they apply for an advancement grant and they upload their tax returns, how quickly will they be able to know whether or not they qualify for these funds?
It's about a 10 to 15 day turnaround. Right now, where the grant program is pretty busy with a lot of processing for students who are going to school and a lot of appeals due to COVID-19. So that is extending that timeframe just a little bit, but really it shouldn't be more than 15 business days.
Perfect. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Curtis Credential of Value. And the Curtis Fund, for people who don't know, is a large philanthropic fund that has been helping Vermont families pay for education for years. And for a long time, that money was targeted to students going on to traditional colleges and universities. And just in the last 2 years, they have created a whole new program to help people that are interested in short-term training programs that lead to certificates and licenses rather than degrees, along with this work they're still doing with degrees. So just an incredible source of funding for Vermont. But can you talk a little bit about this program?
Sure. So the Curtis COV, Credentials of Value Training Scholarship, is available to students who are pursuing, like you said, certificate programs or programs that lead to a credential of value. So a job or an employment in a field that has been identified as high need. To be considered for this scholarship, students do need to be working with an adult outreach counselor like Susie, and they need to be nominated for this funding. So one thing I should mention is we're going to be talking about a lot of funding options, a lot of training opportunities tonight. You don't have to remember it all. You can always come back, call VSAC, reach out to one of the adult outreach counselors, and they will walk you through what funding options might be available to you. So as part of when you're working with say, Susie, and she's considering you for this training scholarship, she's going to make sure that you have completed the advancement grant application that we just talked about and that it has been processed. Because again, she's looking to make sure that you're eligible for and you've applied for the funding that is out there for you. And then, so if you are enrolled in a program that I mentioned, the advancement grant is, the maximum award is $3,000. So say you're enrolled in a $5,000 program. This scholarship, if you're nominated for it, may be able to help with that difference. And awards range in this scholarship from $500 to $1,500 for eligible students. So it's great, oh, go ahead.
So in your example, Miranda, somebody's looking at a $5,000 program. If they were eligible for the maximum advancement grant and received this scholarship, they could be within $500 of paying for that program.
Exactly.
Yeah, stackable financial aid is so important. So the last one you wanted to talk about was the CTE Adult Training Scholarship?
Yes, this is a brand new scholarship this year, actually. We've been programming over the summer to get it ready. And this is a scholarship that's made available through the Vermont Department of Labor. And CTE is Career and Technical Education. It's adult training scholarship. And it's available to students enrolled in a career and technical education course designed to enhance employability. So for this scholarship, it is another scholarship where the students need to be nominated. And in this case, it's by a WIOA, which is Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act counselor. So you would reach out to the Department of Labor and they would connect you with one of these counselors. And this scholarship is intended to cover course-related expenses. So where the other, with the advancement grant, for example, is mainly used for tuition and fees and maybe a small amount of books, this scholarship can be used for tuition and fees if needed, but it also can help cover the cost of uniforms, tools, books, transportation, anything related to taking that course that the student may be experiencing for expenses. And the maximum award for this scholarship is $1,000 per student.
Great, thank you. So those are the programs that VSAC is running, but there are other programs that even the state of Vermont is running, trying to make sure that training programs are accessible for adults looking to change jobs, enter the workforce, re-enter the workforce. Susie, can you talk about a few more of those programs?
Yeah, definitely. And Marilyn, I think this really goes with something that you just said called stackable financial aid. And I think many people don't think of financial aid in terms of that. But here we find often that when we're connecting with multiple grants, scholarships, and resources for students, then we're able to put together a full package that really helps that student to reach their goals. So there are a number of partners that we work with in the state, but we wanted to highlight a few of them here to really express some of the great resources they have. And they're some of our more common partners. So the first one that I would like to mention is the Vermont Department of Labor's WIOA, or Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act program. So Miranda did just mention this program because they have this great new CTE Adult Training Scholarship. In addition to that, they have their traditional WIOA program. So this is a program that's federally funded that helps Vermonters to return to the workforce. So on top of that CTE Adult Training Scholarship, they have an additional program with additional funding to help students reach their goals. They help where there are financial aid gaps. They can assist with the cost of training. And they also really have some flexibility in their program to really look at the student's needs and help with other pieces, such as the cost of tools, transportation, or other unique support services that that student needs. So often, again, in our EOC program, we're helping people apply for traditional financial aid, but we're doing many referrals and connections with WIOA to help students connect with that resource. Another partner that I love to talk about is Voc Rehab Vermont. So Voc Rehab is the state's vocational rehabilitation agency, and they assist people with disabilities or medical conditions which impact them around work or education. Voc Rehab is really exciting in that they have a very open definition around disability. They often express they screen people in rather than screen them out. So for example, any student who early in their education was on a 504 plan or on an IEP would automatically qualify for services with Voc Rehab, as do many other people who didn't have those types of services before. So Voc Rehab Vermont provides a combination of counseling and guidance to students, but also support services. They assist, again, also like many of our partners, with the cost of tuition, books, other support services. So when we're working with a student, we really have a conversation to get an idea of which of these programs they might qualify for, or might benefit from, and then we're really working together to help them make those connections. I also really do like to highlight that there are so many other partner organizations out there. Some are small and unique to just one community in Vermont. Others are statewide. And so, again, we can't list them all here, but there are many great resources to help students. And so we'd like to connect with many of our other partners as well.
Thank you. So Susie, there's a few questions that I wanted to get you to answer for us if you can. So 67% of the folks who answered the poll, what are you concerned about, are concerned about finding the right program. When you're talking to a customer, someone's come in and wants to meet with you and that's their biggest concern, where do you start? What kinds of things do you do that help them find that right program?
Mm-hmm. So I think that the right program is unique to each individual. It really is. I work with some people who really would benefit best from in-person training, others who are searching for an online program in order for it to be able to work around their other scheduling needs. We have some people who need a program with more support and others with more independence. It really, so just like with many things, it starts with a conversation. And rather than just finding one training program, I often like to find at least 3 options and lay out what the pros and cons are for each of those, so that then the student has the information they need to make the best choice for themselves. Early in our conversation, Marilyn, you mentioned office training, maybe taking a Microsoft Office suite. That's a great example of a training program that you can find maybe in your local community and then maybe online as well. And so that's a great example where we can find different resources and then look at the different programs to find the one that's the right fit. Yeah.
Great, that's really helpful. So another concern, so about 33% of the folks who responded to the poll are saying they're worried about going back to school after a long gap. And I totally get this. You know, if you graduated from high school, I don't know, 10 years ago, and now you're thinking of going back, or if you're thinking even of, you know, Miranda said you could use the advancement grant to try a course on a college campus to see if maybe returning to college is the right path for you to reach your career goals. That could be pretty daunting. And, you know, is everyone in these programs going to be 20 except you? Like, what do you tell people that haven't been in school in a long time? They're thinking about it, but they're worried about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's different again for each student. But one thing that I really like to talk with students about is that non-traditional students are actually the majority now.
That's right.
Many people think that all those students who are going to college are coming right out of high school, and that's really not the case. Things have truly changed, and there's a much greater number of people who are seeing education as a lifelong pursuit or something to get back to after maybe you've tried a career or you've raised your family or your circumstances have changed. So I think what you expressed around trying one class under that advancement grant often opens people's eyes to, oh, this feels really different than it used to. I think it's quite exciting for people to go back to school after a gap because your perspective on education is different. You know, many people when they're younger, you go to school because you have to or you're supposed to. And when you're older and you have some more life experience, it's because you want to. It's because you have a stronger interest in an area that you're now ready to explore. So it's a very different perspective on learning. Knowing some people who've done it before, you know, I went back to school myself. I think many of us are in that same position. After having gone to school in person, then when I went back to school, I went online, and that was really different. And it was so much better than I thought it might be. So having the right resources in place, talking through people's concerns and helping them to really have the supports in place to be successful is what really makes the difference.
You know, and we're back to something you said at the beginning, Susie, as well, that a lot of our outreach counselors have lived the experience that they're now helping other people with. And so you have a really strong insight into what people are experiencing when they go through this. Miranda, we have a question I'd like to throw out to you. Are there any age limits on any of the scholarships that we're talking about tonight? And then just in general, have you seen scholarships with age limits on them?
So for the three that we talked about tonight, the advancement grant, the certificates, credentials of value, and the CTE scholarship, the only real limit is that those are not available to students enrolled in high school. So you have to have either finished high school a while ago or have recently graduated high school. And like if you graduated in June, that's fine. But you have to be out of high school for at least 3 months for those scholarships and for the advancement grant. For scholarships in general, in our Scholarships for Vermonters booklet, they're specific to each scholarship. Some are open to all students. Some are open to college students only or adult students only. So the best advice is really to look at our booklet and read through each description and see what the eligibility requirements are and how you might meet those requirements. But there's usually at least one or two within the booklet that students will find that they qualify to apply for.
Great. So Susie, a question for you that came in. Are any of the EOC staff meeting in person with customers now during COVID-19?
We are not, and I miss those meetings. So what we're doing instead, since we're not able to do that, is we have a wide variety of ways that we're connecting with people. So there are a number of different platforms for video chat that we have access to. We can do Zoom, we can do Teams, we could do Skype. If you have an idea for another one that you're connected with, we're willing to try it. We also do a lot of phone meetings with students, and we also text and email in between. So we've really worked to try to be as flexible to communicate in a way that would work for students.
Great. I'm going to actually answer this question myself. We just got a question that says, does VSAC do loans? Yes, VSAC does offer education loans, and we did a whole session on this just a few weeks ago that is available online if anyone's interested. There's a couple of different loan types. If a student is going to a college or university, we always encourage that student to apply for the federal direct loans first. So those are the first ones you want because they've got the best interest rates and strong repayment options and forgiveness options. If you've looked at those loans already and you've taken those, some families still need additional money to borrow in order to pay for higher education. VSAC does offer a private loan called the Vermont Advantage loan that students use. So we absolutely offer our own loan products. We originate loans and we service loans. And then there are a small number of training programs that also qualify for VSAC loans, and it's at the program level. So if there is a particular training program that wants to be considered for whether or not VSAC loans could be used to help pay for that education, they're welcome to reach out to VSAC and we would look at that. But what we're really trying to do on training programs, because so many of them are falling into that $5,000 or less cost, is use these stackable scholarships we're talking about so that people can go through short-term training programs, pay for them with scholarship and grant money if that is possible in order to move on in their careers without having to take out loans. Let's see. Another question, Susie, I think this one is for you. Does VSAC have any programs that would help a student add skills sought after by the hospitality industry, specifically skills helpful in working at music venues?
Oh, interesting. That's a neat
Yeah.
question. Yes, so we help people with accessing a number of different training programs. Probably for that specifically, I'd want to talk with the student and explore what options are out there. So for example, I think it was last winter, the Vermont Department of Labor in partnership with Mount Snow put together a hospitality training. And it was half for employees of Mount Snow, but there were other slots for people in the community who were interested. And it was a really nice partnership. I think CCV helped with designing the curriculum on that. So that's a great example of something. So we would look at options. The advancement grant, which Miranda spoke about, when a person is applying for the advancement grant, it can either be a class that is helping somebody prepare for a degree program, or it can help with somebody who's building employability skills. And that would definitely fall under that category. Sometimes it's an established training program that other students have attended before, and other times we identify a new training program and go through the process of helping that become a training provider that we would partner with. So so it's exciting. I would have to do a little research to find exactly where we might find some great training programs for that, but it definitely is an area that we like to support.
So Susie, another question that we just got, if a student knows exactly where they want to go to school, but they need help with the financial aid side of the equation, but not they've got their school or their program already picked out, can they still work with you?
Oh, absolutely. We do a lot of that. We're, we sometimes joke that we might spend a whole day doing financial aid application after financial aid application with students. And if a student already knows where they want to go and just needs help with that piece, we're really happy to help. And I would say that's one of our favorite things to help with, because those forms can be complicated. And while a student may have the ability to fill that out themselves, it's always helpful to have other eyes, somebody to bounce questions off of, just to make sure that they feel confident in how they're filling out that form.
Yeah, it must save time, I would think, because if it gets filled out incorrectly, then there's a little more going back and forth between VSAC and the student. Is that right, Miranda? And if it's comes in and it's completely filled out, then we're back to, it might be turned around in as little as 10 business days.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another question, Susie, for you. Does VSAC offer consultations in the evening or weekends? So for people who work 8 to 4:30, how do they connect with you?
Right, so most of our appointments we do have during regular business hours, but for students who need a different time, then we find a time that will work for them and for us. So, so I do occasionally schedule evening appointments, occasionally a weekend appointment. So if we're able to do it during business hours, great. But if we're not, we definitely still want to help you and are willing to be flexible for that.
And that could be, again, it could be a phone call, a Zoom meeting, texting, emailing. It's whatever works best for that person in trying to reach you and get the guidance they need.
Exactly.
Perfect. Perfect. So one other thing that that had come up that I wanted to mention out of our poll of concerns. So we've already talked about finding the right program. We've talked a lot about how you pay for it, and 50% of people were concerned about the cost of the program. So we've dealt with that, I think, a lot. We've talked about returning to school after an extended period of time. But one of the things we haven't talked about is that family work school balance. Susie, when you're meeting with someone, do you have tips? And you don't necessarily have to share them right now, but but do you have some ideas for people to help them when they're trying to figure out how they get this all balanced out?
Yes, definitely. You know, I think for somebody who's coming into school when it has been a while, it's pretty exciting how many of the training programs out there are flexible around the pace that a student can take. So for example, if we were to look at the Community College of Vermont and the number of certificate programs that they have available to students, I work with a number of students who for their first semester, they just try one class. It gives them the confidence to know that they can do it well, that it will balance with their family. And then they learn from that experience, well, do I want to just keep going with one class a semester? Or do I now feel like I could balance with two? So there's a lot of flexibility there. Personally, one thing that I found as being in that position of going back to school and working and having young children, and that can really feel like a lot, is I personally felt that working and having children were things that I was giving a lot of energy to. And going back to school was something that was feeding me and giving energy back to me. And so it can feel like more on your plate to go back to school, but it can also, if it's the right program, be stimulating and exciting and energizing. And so I often like to talk about that with students as well. You definitely want to make sure that you have the time available to dedicate to school, to do the best that you can so you can gain the most you can from it. But also don't underestimate the value and the gift that you can be giving to yourself by continuing your education.
Great. And another question just came in. How do EOC counselors assist with loan and grant applications if you can't meet in person? And I'm going to start that question or that answer, Susie, and then let you take over. But when you fill out as many grant and loan applications and FAFSAs, which is the free application for federal student aid, the advancement grant, whatever it might be, as the EOC counselors do, pretty much you can say, I don't know the answer to question 17, and they know where you are in the application. But Susie, how would you answer that question?
Yes, I think we have the forms almost memorized by now. I can visualize each of those screens as the student might be going through that. One of the best platforms I found for helping a student complete a financial aid application is if we're doing a video chat similar to Zoom, because in a platform like that, for example, if the student has a computer, and I can guide them through pulling up a website, they can share their screen. Or similarly, I could pull it up and I could share my screen, and we're both looking and working on the form together. So that's a great way that even though we can't meet in person, we can really be looking at the same documents and the same questions and be talking about the best way to answer the questions. We do successfully complete these forms over the phone as well. And somehow when the student has that form up, I do still picture in my mind what that page is on the FAFSA, for example, that they might be filling out. So yes, I think at the beginning of COVID, we were a bit worried. You know, we were so used to doing these things in person, and I'm a glass half full kind of person, but it's worked out quite well. And I think we've also found some new ways to help students without having to drive long distances, for example, or for them to have to leave work for a while, where we can now be more flexible for students this way.
Perfect. And Miranda, if someone calls right into our grant program, and I'm going to share some phone numbers and contact information in just a moment, your staff also is trained to help somebody fill out these financial aid forms, whether it's the advancement grant or it's the FAFSA or whatever it might be, that they can also get help right there. Is that right?
Absolutely. we will either pull out our paper application. In some instances, we might go out to the online application so we can follow right along with you. But just like Susie mentioned, we've helped fill out lots of applications, so we're very familiar with them as well.
Great. Well, I think that takes us to the end of our questions. If any of our audience members have another question that they'd like to submit, now would be a really great time. I think we've answered everything that has come in. I just want to take a really quick look at this and make sure. Yeah, so we've answered everything that's come in. And I would like to very much thank everyone who joined us this evening. I know this is a lot of information, and there's a lot of acronyms we're using. We're throwing out FAFSA, we're throwing out WEO, or we're talking about grants and scholarships that maybe you've never heard of before. Susie sometimes refers to this as alphabet soup when she's talking to customers, just because it can get really tangled up and confusing. But all of this gets really simple when you call VSAC and you make an appointment to see an EOC counselor and have somebody that can walk you through this. So let me just move to our last slide so we can talk about how to contact us. So you can contact us by, if you want to reach an EOC counselor and you want one of those appointments, please call 877-961-4369, or you can email info@vsac.org. Either of those will get you to a place where we can set up an appointment with you. And if what you really know is that you already know where you're going, you just need to fill those forms out and you'd like to ask a question, you can call our grant program. Again, it's a toll-free number, 1-800-882-4166, or you can email grants@vsac.org. And I can't even tell you how much I encourage anyone who's thinking about needing to increase your skills or change your career path to reach out to VSAC. Outreach counselors like Susie are spread out across the state so that they have statewide reach into your communities. This is exactly what VSAC was created for. And we really do. I'm hoping, I certainly did, but I'm hoping you also heard just the pure enjoyment in Susie's voice when she's talking about working with Vermonters and helping them achieve their educational goals. That's really important for us, and it's something that we all enjoy doing. So as we come to the end of this presentation, again, I encourage you to call us or reach out to us if you're thinking of a career change or thinking you need to increase your skills. I would really like to thank both Susie and Miranda for joining us tonight. You guys were wonderful, and it was really helpful. And I would like to say to our audience, good night and stay well, and don't even hesitate to give us a call because we'd love to talk to you. Thank you.